this meeting of the January 19th, 2017 Budget Committee to order. We'll start with a pledge of allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Deb, if you call the roll.
Okay. Mr. Souza?
Here.
Mr. Edwards?
Here.
Mr. Katz?
Present.
Ms. Hollenbach? Present. Mr. McNally?
Here.
Mr. Leonard?
Present.
Ms. Janik is present. Mrs. Driggs? Present. Mrs. Cook? Present. Okay, and we note that Mr. Karen will be late and
Jennifer will not.
Jennifer will not be here.
Okay. And I will ask if there is any member of the public that has any comments, given. Apparently not, so we will move along.
Mr. Karen is present.
Yes.
1 minute after.
I will do the usual, since we have a couple of people that are going to be making some presentations. I'll ask for a motion to move the review of minutes after item 3.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. So that gets us right to Mrs. Surratt. Uh-oh.
You want to do your minutes? I'll go downstairs.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll reverse my position quickly and go back to number 1 and see if anybody has any comments. The minutes for the workshop on January 14th are pretty short. We were there. There's a record of who was there, and that's it. We toured the facility.
Move the minutes. Second.
Who seconded? Okay.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Wait a
Approved.
minute, so wait a minute, you kept to abstain.
Right.
Sustained. Any noes? Okay. Well, while we're waiting for Mrs. Surratt, let me mention that in terms of facility visits, we're scheduled for the police department this Saturday. We'll meet at 9 o'clock over at the police headquarters on Industrial Way. And then on the following week, on the 28th, we will meet at the DPW shop, again over on Industrial Way, at 9 o'clock. So it would appear that Mrs. Surratt is here, so we will ask her to proceed.
I know you have my budget, but this was actually a hair lower.
Thank you. There's this one. Can you either use that mic or grab the mic over there so that you'll,
I can stand,
Yep,
Can you hear me now?
yep. More
Okay.
importantly, the recording can hear you.
Okay. Good evening. I believe you have the budget that I submitted back in, it was in December, to the town clerk. And tonight, I just passed out another budget. It's very similar. I think it's $950 lower. Do you want to go through each line item? It's
Very short, so.
It's very
go ahead
short and
walk it through
concise.
us.
I now have myself and 2 full-time employees working in the treasurer's office. We used to have 2.5. However, through some new software changes and implementing some new payroll modules and various things, we were able to shift some duties around and eliminate the half position this year. I have 1 employee who is we are contractually obligated to pay longevity to. As far as my office equipment goes, part of that budget line item is a service contract on my copier that was handed down to me from Jim Gonzalo that came via the DPW, whatever, but it does its job. It doesn't do anything in color, it doesn't scan in color or anything like that, but it gets quite a bit of use in our office because we print almost everything through the copier. It's a little bit less expensive. It's always not as pristine looking, but it serves its purpose. As far as education and seminars, that's a fairly new line item for me, just a couple of years old, and what I've been doing there is with our new software, I occasionally engage them to teach me how to do some report writing and various other, take advantage of various other aspects of the software, and they do charge for that, so I charge that to that line item, as well as any government finance seminars that I have to go to that I pay the fee for from there. My telephone, I did cut that. It's roughly around $70 a month. Computerized payroll, that's a significant portion of my operating budget, but that covers all of the payroll processing, W-2s, the quarterly reporting. It also covers the fees that we pay for the online attendance. The next line, the Affordable Care Act, that was a new one the last couple of years. I did my best to get out of it, but there's nothing I can do as far as that goes.
If that should get repealed this year, is that going to affect that?
I have no idea. We did get notice from the service that said just because you're hearing it's going to be repealed doesn't necessarily mean that that reporting aspect that I have to comply with and the measuring aspect that I have to do will get repealed. So right there, they monitor and measure and report all the health care benefits for our employees.
What exactly does the expense go toward? Is it a contractor who fills it out?
Yes, paychecks. They developed a module, if you will, to assist their clients in satisfying these requirements.
Okay. And it's just reporting the type of insurance people have and
Well,
what they use it for? And
It's really about monitoring the number of employees, because, you know, there's all of those thresholds with the Affordable Care Act. If you are an employer over 50 or 100 and you have so many full-time employees, and then they have to measure when you have your part-time employees and how many part-time employees become a full-time employee when they consolidate those numbers to make sure that you are adequately offering the health care, to make sure that it is affordable, that it is within a certain range of the lowest paid employee that works in the whole town. It's quite, I mean, they've made it quite complicated, but the bottom line is, at the end of the year, we are required to provide a 1095B to those employees who participate in the insurance, or if they don't. So this year, last year, we issued them, but the IRS did not require them because there was so much trouble implementing this whole thing that a lot of people just could not get it done. We got it done. But this year, they're requiring it. So you might find when you file your own income tax, your employer should be issuing you a 1095B.
What's the penalty if you don't do it?
I don't know what if you don't do the filing.
Yeah.
There's significant penalties, but I couldn't tell you what they are at this point. I'm not interested in being penalized for not doing it.
I was mainly just, I'm wondering.
One other thing I noticed, I don't know if it's on the longevity,
Mm-hmm.
he asked me. I think the 4,134 you have was actually for 15-16 year?
That's correct. It says fiscal year 16.
No, fiscal year 16-17 was 2301.
Right.
Oh,
Right, so-
Am I missing something? So you have 2 years?
I'm showing you the last 3 years of my
Oh,
budget.
I'm sorry, okay, sorry.
It decreased because the employee that left
Yeah.
my office, she just moved upstairs. So the longevity that followed her to that department. The GASB 45 reporting is $7,800 every 2 years. When I first came here, there was some confusion about how that was being paid. And it was difficult because in 1 year it would be it was actually 7,500 back then. So we decided to smooth it out over 2 years. So I pay half 1 year. They do the report for 1 year and it covers 2 years. I pay half 1 year, and then the next fiscal year rolls around, I pay the other half, just so that we can smooth it over the 2 years. We are obligated to do an OPEB report. I have to provide them with all kinds of data on all of our employees and our retirees, all of the benefits that they get, and it's similar to an actuarial valuation. They calculate what our OPEB liability is going to be. It's used in our financial statements. It's required by GASB to be in there. So that's what that line is for.
For our TV audience, would you explain what
OPEB?
OPEB is?
OPEB is other post-employment benefits, and it's used to measure all of the benefits that we are contractually obligated to for our current employees and for our retired employees. And this report covers the town and the school. We each contribute the data, and it's calculated townwide, and then it's calculated by general employees, DPW employees, the teachers, the fire, and the police.
So that,
Thank you.
this dollar amount covers both the town and the schools, the municipal and the school side employees?
Yes.
And do they chip in anything for this?
They do not, and that's primarily because it goes in our financial statements. The next line item is for fixed assets and a bond trustee fee. We do not have any kind of accounting software currently that maintains, calculates, and produces the reports for our fixed assets. So we engage a company, they're called CBIZ Valuation, and they charge $1,300. Over 6 years, it's gone from $1,200 to $1,300. They provide assistance, all of the reports that are required for our financial statements, all of the reports that are required by our insurance company to insure our assets, market value, replacement value, those different kinds of numbers that we need. And another piece of that is there is an annual bond fee that we pay to the trustees for managing all of the government obligation bonds, which means when I pay the bond, then they have to disperse all of those funds to the bondholders, and they charge a fee for that. That fee has always been passed around between departments up until 2 years ago, when it would always land on my desk, and I didn't know where I was going to get the $1,000 from. So last year and this year, you'll see the increase there is because we just decided to budget for it properly. As far as supplies and miscellaneous, postage runs us about $1,400 a year. Checks, ink, toner, paper, folders, typical office supplies. My software maintenance is $1,800 a year, plus if we have any IT issues. What we generally do is we do have a gentleman that comes once a week. If our issue can wait, we try to work it into when he's here. But we've had issues where it can't wait and he needs to make a special trip out here, or he needs to spend in extra time in our office. He was down there last couple of weeks ago for 4 hours. We had driver issues with our printer. We couldn't get anything to print double-sided. We don't know what happened. It's not my, thing. So this is where I would charge that line item to. So my budget's pretty straightforward. $184,858. When I came on board, my budget was about $225,000 for this office. So we've made some really good strides in reducing our budget. We changed our general ledger software 3 or 4 years ago. Our annual maintenance fee at the time was climbing over $11,000 a year. And I just couldn't see it anymore. So we switched. Now we're paying $1,800, but then if I need extra support, like I mentioned earlier, I pay for it. And that's part of what I put in my education or my software maintenance, depending on if it's something that I ask them to do or if it's something that, we have an issue and I need to pay them a little extra for it. We've implemented the new payroll modules to assist us in running payroll. It's reduced so much of the manual work that was going on in the office. And that's how we were able to combine the positions. Now we've kind of embarked on trying to do as much electronic paying as possible. We've pretty much exhausted that. A lot of our vendors, we have some small vendors that just don't either partake in that. They don't want ACH, they want a check, they like a copy of the invoice, et cetera, et cetera. But we've gone down that road as well to try to reduce expenses.
Can you charge them a fee for that? The extra? I get charged all the time just to buy a ticket to go to a concert. Can you charge them $1?
Charge our
Instead of
vendors.
electronic, they're asking for something extra, they should have to pay for it.
Well, you can't force someone to, we owe them
don't have to
money.
force
If
them,
if
but-
we owe them money,
Yeah.
we are obliged to pay them. If they don't have the means to take an electronic payment,
And then they have to pay for it.
well, I imagine that is something that we could do, but it's not anything I would want to do.
Well, they don't have a choice, just tell them they have to pay it.
Well,
I don't,
That's not right.
That's not good vendor relations. Not really. That's not a good way to deal with people that we
And
depend
then-
on.
and then
It's
if,
business. You know,
if-
you're taking the hit.
It's chicken money.
It-
It's-
it-
it's hard
yeah, I
work.
mean, we're
Yeah.
talking 50 cents maybe, not even if
Well-
it's
Hardly
postage.
worth it.
And we've gone so far, Donna, as in the past, checks would be cut, individual checks for invoices. We combine invoices. We hold envelopes and stuff them till they're full. I mean, I'm not going to start charging my vendors because they want a paper check.
plus, if you don't pay them, then they stop providing the service. It's pretty straightforward. They have that funny idea that if they do a service or supply a good, they want their money. They don't get their money, you don't get
We,
whatever you
we use a
bought
lot
from
of small businesses in town. I'm not gonna start charging Humphreys because they want a check.
them. Yep.
I mean,
On a different topic, I see we're up to Gadsby's standard 45. 45, yeah.
oh,
Is
we're
there-
way past that, but that's the OPEB
Oh.
Gadsby.
how m-
We're up to like
are-
70-something now.
Is there any end in sight?
No.
No.
Why would there be an end in sight?
I
They
had
wouldn't have
hope.
anything to do.
I had hope.
It's a bureaucracy, it never gets less.
Denise, where's the auditor's fees?
The auditor's fees are a separate line item.
in
And
that?
we've done really well with them the last 3 years.
They go into the council budget, do they not?
They have their own line item.
Okay,
It's right, if you look in the budget, it's very
It's like
close to mine, either
22,000.
before or after.
Yeah.
22,000. I mean, that went down from 26, I think, from the previous auditors.
Isn't that a contract with them?
Yes, it is.
Can I ask about the telephone?
Sure?
I guess it would be a follow-up to Matt, actually. I had asked when I first got on the budget committee about all the fax lines, and you're gonna look into, I don't know, you have a new IT guy coming, or try to look into not having as many fax lines, or having maybe 2 fax machines instead of 10 faxes and all of, do you still have a lot of?
We have a fax line in our office, but we're downstairs. And as much as I do like running up and down the stairs, we do get faxes periodically from the other departments, from outside agencies. So, I
was
mean,
just wondering,
I'd be happy to share my fax with somebody.
like, maybe one, I don't know. What's the story, Matt, on that? Was that ever looked into, or?
Sure. So Cox did a walkthrough of the building, and stage 1 was to get away from the copper wire spaghetti mess that was ticky-tacked all over a piece of plywood in the basement here. And we've replaced a lot of equipment that now makes us a little bit more efficient. You should notice that the telephone accounts will all be even or down with our town hall functions. Just consolidated, we've turned off a few lines. As recently as yesterday, we turned off a line that was not being used anymore. I'm inclined to pursue that further, but now that the equipment is all set up and modernized, and we have a little bit more plug and play opportunity, we'll just start cutting the lines off. Because the fax is no longer a modern office equipment.
No, because now it's
That's-
PDF, and I
Right.
know maybe there might be some faxes.
We can
Fax
fax over
needs,
the
but-
internet now, you don't even need.
No,
you
that's
can
what I
actually
mean. I mean,
print
it was
Oh.
unbelievable, the amount of money going for extra telephone lines. It was very expensive. And, so how many fax machines do we have now?
You're still gonna have six or seven
In the small building?
machines.
Yeah, I just want to say something to that. I work in corporations. A floor much larger than this building would have 1 fax machine.
Yes.
I mean, this is just unbelievable.
That's what I'm saying, it's,
Large financial corporations that I worked in. I don't understand.
well,
1 fax machine would serve, in my opinion. So, just letting you
one
know.
downstairs and one upstairs. I mean, that's ridiculous to have you running up down the stairs to use a fax machine.
I mean, how many faxes you get, per month or per year? That would be good information.
Is it possible to just have one downstairs and one upstairs?
That's the goal. I just wanna make sure that confidential taxpayer information stays where it's
I know,
supposed
but
to
how
stay.
hard is it to just maybe walk over here and get it?
Not hard at all.
So can we do that to cut expenses?
It's a good
do
idea.
that? I mean, move into the.
It's the maintenance is high too, so.
How do
It's
you
just something to
control
think
who-
about.
How do you control who looks at that information?
Well, that's one of the things in my office.
There are
We're in-
ways, actually. There's ways
That's what
to
I'm
have a code, and you don't have to get the fax right away. There's just ways to do it. I'm not 100% sure, but.
Well, my fax machine is probably 15 years old, so I don't know if it is equipped to do that, in all seriousness. But, we do have sensitive documents in our office So I don't think I would want people running in and out if we had a fax on there. You know, I've got everybody's social security numbers,
Yeah.
names, address, phone numbers.
Yeah, we're just looking at that part. at
Well,
that option.
I've heard that argument before, and it's justified, and I respect that. On the other hand, to be in the dinosaur age, still paying for all these faxes and not finding some way to make it more affordable, it's in the dark ages,
Well,
PDF now, but I understand we need to have confidentiality, and there must be a way to maintain some confidentiality and yet maybe only have 2 fax machines. I can't believe that it's used a lot, but the amount of times that it's used, and if you need it, then of course we have to have the equipment to cover what you need to do. But I can't see, that just doesn't make any sense to
We
me in
fax
this day
very
and
little
age.
out.
It's almost like the horse and pony.
It's,
Well-
believe it or not, we have people who need to fax us things.
Okay,
Can't
that,
tell you right now
I
what they
understand
are,
that, but I don't
but-
think we need 6 fax machines. It's just a small place.
And it was
Okay.
10 before? 10 at one time?
It was huge.
Okay, if
Okay,
if
this
we
is one
can,
example. I think we can go on, but I'm just,
Yeah.
pretty
because
much
we're
can't
now
believe
now
either.
talking about the whole town enterprise versus the treasurer's office. So,
yeah.
does anybody have any more questions about the treasurer's budget?
The employee who left your office went to what department?
She is now split between the tax assessor's office and the tax collector's office.
And the service contract on a copier, what's the period on that?
It's inannual.
Annual? Signed one.
Excuse me?
When would that be renewed?
I believe it's August, but I'm not sure.
I just want to, when did you said your budget was 225 when you started. When was that?
2011.
2011. And it's down about
Mid-year.
17%. The Affordable Care Act reporting, that covers the school as well?
No.
No? Okay. And I'm just curious, given all the discussion of fax machines, about what portion, I would ask townwide or in your department, of the telephone bill is attributable to fax machines?
Oh, it's very small. We have 2 phone lines in our office,
Plus the fax?
plus the fax.
Does it work out that it's proportional, like if the fax is 1/3 of the bill?
I don't even think so. Maybe $10.
Okay, any other questions?
That's
Ms.
per month,
Richardson.
$10?
Who budgets for your salary?
You guys.
Well,
No, I have typically not asked for a salary increase. It has been up through this year, the Budget Committee or the Town Council, who has suggested increasing the salary of that position in order to stay in line with market conditions in the event I leave and you need to hire somebody else.
This the appropriate time and place to recommend a salary increase? Or how do we do that?
What I would like to do is get more of an overview of where we're at, where we don't get caught, where we're piecemealing. I'd rather get in a position. I think our secretary will note that that's a point we want to come back to.
I think we only have 2 people that applies to,
Yes, but
treasurer and the town.
that's
clerk.
correct. But if we put the whole picture together, including the school, and I'm just using a wild number, and all of a sudden it's a 5% budget increase, we're gonna look at things different at that point. I'm
I don't
not
care what
saying,
the overall budget increase is. I don't think that should have any bearing on the salary of the.
It has a bearing on it?
No, it doesn't.
Can you give your reasons?
It doesn't.
well,
Well, why should
It does.
a school department increase affect her pay or Nancy
Because
Mills'
the
pay?
contracts are out of control, that's why we're just
Okay.
awful.
Because of the ability of the taxpayer, John, it's real simple. We'll read the charter.
Bullshit.
Okay. okay.
John,
Do we
No,
have?
what is your reason
do
for
we have a
asking?
Do we have a position like hers in Nancy's that we're gonna keep it low so it doesn't affect the tax rate? That's not fair.
John, what's your reason
It's
for
not
asking
fair to
for
the
it?
taxpayer either.
Why don't you make a motion to increase the salary right now, John,
That's
then?
what I asked, and Cecil said he.
Go ahead, make the motion.
no, because I asked him not to. So that's,
And I'll go along with Cecil, but
I wanna
think
get
it's
where we're
unfair
at.
at the end of this process that there should be a salary increase for this position and the town clerk's position. I don't think they should stand out there all by themselves and have, and be dumped on.
John, the rest of the country is getting no increases.
John.
The rest of the country.
Well, you have to be.
That's clear.
I don't have to be worried about Oakland, California.
Okay.
John, what's unfair is discussing this now while the treasurer is standing in front of us.
Yeah, that's not.
No, that's okay. So I think we're done with Madam
You done?
Secretary. But I don't want the treasurer to leave because I have an answer via our treasurer. Last meeting, Mr. Karen asked the actuary a question. And the answer we got back, Mr. Brown sent an answer to the treasurer, as he said he would. And Mr. Karen's question, and I'll paraphrase it a little bit, was,
Please do, because I don't remember it.
what you were seeking was how long, once people retired, how long did they live? You were looking for more now, I don't know whether
Yeah, that was me. I was looking for a
or
ballpark.
Justin. Somebody over there. And the answer came back, and Madam Treasurer can correct me if I paraphrase it wrong. The answer came back, that's hard to determine, and we haven't done any research because we don't want to charge the town any money without authorization. So basically, they took, 2 paragraphs to say, we don't know. But if you want us, we can do the research and answer the question.
And bill us.
Oh, yes, yes.
Would we have to write a check for that invoice, or could we do that?
Electronically,
I
that's not funny.
suspect, given, no, I won't say that. I was about to be disrespectful to actuaries, so I won't go down that path. They're probably modern. But did I summarize the answer?
Pretty much.
Pretty
is what-
much.
I didn't hear the question or what
Yeah.
he had said originally.
Yep.
But he basically said that the tables weren't that easy to break down to get to that kind of a number. It's not, a 1-to-1. If you're 50 now, you're going to live till you're 80. So to delve down and try to get an answer would require billable hours from the actuary. And he didn't think it was something that we would want to do, but
Yep.
So I can understand the pension board, are you on the pension board? Just
I am.
Okay. The pension board has authority to determine the assumptions that go into the actuarial assessment of the pensions, correct?
yes.
So they're saying that part of their contract with us does not enable them to advise you the longevity that they're assuming. They could be assuming that our police are going to live to be 60 or 120, and we have no way of knowing that, and they'll bill us if we want to find that out.
No, my understanding is that the mortality
mortality
tables they're multiple ones, and it depends on where you are. If you're a policeman that starts at 20 years old, there's an assumption about your mortality. You've got 20 years to go. It could be, I don't know. Things don't look as good as to being 39 years old and having gotten through the tough period. So trying to figure out if you, looking at all the current employees and then those who are collecting, that one average, if that's what they're saying, is difficult to calculate, I think, and it's not that meaningful. So we're looking for, to say, of all the people in the pension plan, what's the average life expectancy? Is that the question? I mean, it seems to me what they're trying to do is build a fairly complex model that says, given the age of the people who are currently in the plan, when might they die, and that changes each year. And then those people who are collecting, that changes, and that gets updated, and our pension plan looks different than others because there's a different age distribution as you go through it. So,
And if I'm not mistaken, aren't those mortality tables like standard throughout the industry?
Was my understanding too, is that was what changed, the assumptions was of saying we were
Well, they've
using
updated them
the year
recently.
2000 mortality tables, and they wanted to update them because people are living longer and there's maybe less or more danger in the jobs. So I don't know for sure, but my understanding is that the answer is in multiple mortality tables. And if the question is saying take all of those and average them, then they're saying that would
No, I
cost
think-
us some money.
I think we would want separate group, them kept separate, not one average. And
Yeah.
we would want to know the cost up front.
What did they pick? Did they pick a plan where they are the only recipient, or did they pick one where their wife is also
Yeah.
included in this?
And
So she
Mr.
could live another 10 years longer, so now it
Well,
just goes on and on and on and on. and
That's
on.
true, they have a choice.
And Mr. Brown, when he was here, made that point that the majority of officers that retire have the joint payment to where the spouse is covered. And then, you know, you can have a little bit older man married to a very young woman, so the payment can go on for a very long time.
Right, but, I mean, to your point, the pension board will choose, and as we saw it was a 5% increase changing the mortality table. The pension board would give recommendations on which mortality table, what category might be appropriate for our town that the actuary can't decide. So I find this at the state level too. I have simple questions about the numbers that go into it, and they go, oh, well, our computer doesn't spit that out easily, so we're going to charge you $10,000 to calculate it. It seems somewhat absurd to me. It just, how can a pension board possibly pick an estimate when they can't know what the number, when it's some unknowable number in the ether that they're dealing with? I mean, that's
And that's why they called it an assumption. And I think I don't know the proper name for the group. I'm sure there's the American Association of Actuaries, whatever that organization is called. And I think there's some standard that gives them guidance as to what actuarial table to use. You know, you wouldn't apply the police to somebody that's a clerical person in an office. And I think the firefighters have even a different one. But the world of the actuary and pension calculators are arcane at best. And the thing.
That's why I'm not one.
From our standpoint, the thing that's difficult is that we're behind the curve, and the only way to catch up with the curve because of the arithmetic is to pump a lot of money out of the current funds in, which nobody wants to do.
Well, I don't want to belabor to the point. It seems to me that it puts us as the client in a difficult situation. On the one hand, oh, this number is way too specific to your town for me to average it and your employees. On the other hand, we have to use statistics for the entire nation that are dictated as the standard. It seems it ought to be part of a multi-$1,000 actuarial contract to give elected officials an estimate of how old you think a retiree is going to live. Are they going to live to be? I mean, we have averages for the entire country. I can't believe there's no average that they have access to.
I'll just stick to it's arcane, and we end up with a bill. And I think with any other questions.
Well, on a note related to, oh, go ahead, sorry.
I guess, does it have to be arcane? If we're getting stuck with a bill, we should understand the basis for what the bill is. I think that's what Justin's saying, and I agree.
By federal standards, we have to have actuarial reports. That's it. We don't have a choice. There's federal, what is it, ERISA? Can't remember the exact acronym, but anyway, there's extensive.
We're not plan,
No, but they're.
under the state's regulatory.
Yeah, but the state reflects to a degree the feds, and there's a mass of regulation around it. So we just can't arbitrarily say, we're not going to use an actuary. And I'm not disagreeing with Mr. Katz.
Well, and I'm not suggesting that. I just want to make sure that's clear. I'd actually like to be able to use the actuary rather than just get a nice pretty report out of it.
I would prefer that we not be in this hole that we're in, but here we are.
On the related note, the gentleman from Washington Trust said that the ability to rely on taxpayers in the future allows the town to invest at higher risk. Do you agree with that?
So you're saying that if the taxpayers don't have the ability to pay, that we should risk?
No. What I'm saying is,
invest
with regard to
more
the seven.
aggressively?
No. What I'm saying is, with regard to the 7.5% investment return, they seemed to acknowledge that's high for something where you definitely need the money in the future. And but they did say that when they recommend a discount rate, they look at other assets and other sources of income that the person might have at the end of the period when they advise them. And I asked, would that be taxpayers? And they said that would be part of the conversation. So in other words, because the town can go back to taxpayers to make up gaps in the investment like we had last year, then you can shoot for a higher investment return with 80% equity because you can always fall back on the taxpayers. Is that an assessment you share?
I don't look to fall back on the taxpayers. My goal is to get the pension funded as best we can. The 7.5% assumption that is used is just that, an assumption. And it's relatively reasonable based on what the state is expecting us to use so that they can compare us to the other municipalities. We have discussed at length using different, lowering the rate, raising the rate. My feeling is we've given this job to Washington Trust because we believe that they are really good at what they do. And I think that they're going to try to make whatever investment return that they can for us, given the constraints that they work under, and given the market that it is. I mean, if we said 7.5 and they could do better, I'm sure that they would.
Oh, I don't doubt that. It's an assessment of risk. I mean, if you're trying to estimate in order to get your monthly payment or your annual
But we're
payments.
not picking that 7.5 because we think we can go back to the taxpayer and ask them for more money.
Okay, so you don't think being able to go back to the taxpayer is an acceptable risk to raise the discount rate?
Why would you want to raise the discount rate?
I don't want to raise it. I think it's too high.
Right.
I think it ought to be 3 or 4%,
Well,
which would blow up our budget.
I'm not sure I agree with 3 or 4%, but I mean, you'd really be an outlier doing that.
Oh. No? Yeah, when everybody's heading for a cliff, it's good to be an outlier.
Sometimes.
Well,
But it would certainly blow up
This is such a
our
long-range plan. You're looking over such a long period of time. I think that,
Yeah. Okay, so I think we've exhausted our treasurer, and we will thank her, and we'll make a note that we will consider putting some more money in her paycheck at the appropriate time.
Consider it.
Thank her.
We thank you for everything that you do also.
Right. Thank you. I noticed that the budget that you're proposing is just under 4% less than what you had last year.
we try.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you don't have to pay me for it. No, actually, just as an aside, what I do here, I do because I am good at what I do. And one of the reasons that keeps me here in a job where there's no benefits for me is I live down the street. So I don't have to think about a commute, and I don't have those kind of expenses. So I do factor that in to not asking for an increase.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda has to do with the continued and the discussion of the Office of State Libraries. And I've got a memo from our town solicitor. I hope there's 5 copies there. And hopefully there's 7. I've made 2 two for you.
They're the same?
Yes.
Before we move on, just to state for the record, I want to make it clear for the viewing audience that the bulk, it's great that the budget in this department went down, but the bulk of the reduction was the employee who moved to a different department. So in this department, that's great, but that doesn't help the taxpayer all that much this year if the employee just moved to another department. I just want to make that point.
And that's why I want to see the whole thing.
Can we get those pages, please?
I had 2.5 employees in my document. We cut a half a person.
Right, and she went to a different department.
No, eliminated the position. I had 2 1/2 people working in my office.
Right,
I eliminated, one of the persons moved upstairs. And I didn't fill the half position, and I merged it with my other person.
Right, but
right, but
I eliminated
That's a
a
net
half
loss.
a person.
right, in this department, but didn't you say that person went to a different department?
It was an existing position, so you had a retirement up here,
Mhm.
okay? So then they went through their union rules. The individual that was downstairs went upstairs.
All right.
Okay,
And then we had 1.5 people, and we did not replace the half. Because that
Okay.
half person became both the payroll and accounts payable, but combining what used to be 1.5 people into one.
okay, all right, well, that's different, and I'm glad we clarified that, thank you.
Yep.
Get the, whatever it is that Cecil passed out.
do we have any, there should be enough.
There was enough, we just didn't get it passed out.
Well, they didn't-
No, there's still one.
Do we have another one of these? Yep.
Is this handout the same handout? We handed out one document in the last 60
No.
seconds.
This is just a memo that came in today from the town administrator. Excuse me, solicitor, not administrator.
One document, okay.
Four
So we showed the second one
pages.
handed out. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
And he addresses 2 issues. One is he addresses the office of, or the state office of library and information. Then he also talks about the maintenance of effort for the school district in relation to enrollment. And one of our questions was, well, who would apply for a waiver? And he, in his conversation, says that party would be the town council, and it would also happen after the budget was approved. So as far as doing anything with the waiver prospectively in advance, that's not doable. It's everything for the waiver is after the fact.
Are we talking about the school
Talk about
MOE or the library now?
Library.
I thought it was the Board of Library Trustees that requested the waiver.
No,
That's on page.
no.
I'd like to thank Mr. Leonard for handing this document out, and for the benefit of everybody, it's 5 pages of double-spaced type, which I know I'd like to read in detail.
I have 4 pages.
And, I'm sorry, maybe it's 4.
That's 4.
So, I'm not sure, I think on the agenda, which I was just trying to look up, and I do not see, but this got handed out under the object, which was a continuation of the library OLIS form, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, so
And,
I would like to ask, without a formal motion, since I certainly haven't read this document in detail yet, that this matter be continued, that one line item be continued as to such time, such as next week, when we can at least have read this with a cup of coffee.
I'll just, as item 3 says continued from 12 January, and I'll just keep that item on the agenda, so it gives everybody a chance to.
That's great.
I agree.
didn't expect everybody to speed read it.
Yep.
But just be aware that he also addresses the maintenance of effort linked to enrollment with the school.
Great,
So-
great, thank you.
That brings us to correspondence or information document received, presented, and I think our town administrator is here to say something about the municipal budget, perhaps.
I'm here because you're having a meeting. Okay.
Well, since you're here, then I'll ask the question of where do we stand with the municipal budget?
Could the administrator grab the microphone, maybe?
You have, this thing.
It's coiled. Nice.
Try not to if it doesn't fall over on me. For distribution this evening, you have two documents. They're in my office, and I'm bringing them around. One is the council's final mark of its preliminary budget. So it's a spreadsheet in Excel by account number, by function, and it gets you to a bottom line budget because we include the school's projected budget, so you can at least get some sense of what the general fund budget looks like. The other document is a lot of work for a limited purpose. What I do is I take all of our historical actuals for each of those accounts, go back 5 years and disclose that. Disclose the average and disclose the trend so that we can at least have some basis for a conversation. Why is an account growing? How many accounts are shrinking? And then there's a narrative on many of those slides. It simply explains what's in that account. Sometimes the account headings are just so vague you have really no idea what the general ledger is picking up and scoring against that. So I try the best I can to disclose that. I boiled it down to about half the size it was last year, so it's about a couple hundred pages. The notion is that not everything is immediately obvious with any of these accounts, no matter how small or how large. And the more you unbundle it, the better sense you get for the complexity of all the different streams of activity that form what is actually a fairly sophisticated budget. It's just that we're not a big corporation, so we don't put millions of dollars into our buckets. We put only hundreds of dollars into our buckets. But the interaction of all those little buckets forms the system that this organization is. And in the front of the document, the last thing, there was the council president and one of the other members specifically asked for some very straightforward, simple pictures of, big picture of what goes on. For instance, how many cents per dollar go to the schools versus the town. 61 cents go to the school. 8 cents goes to general obligation debt. The remainder goes to the town. Once the town gets its remainder, how does that break out across our functions, whether it's protection of persons and property, financial administration, Department of Public Works? Just break it out so people can understand what the flow is and what municipal government is all about. It's really all about its education system and its public safety functions. With those police, fire, and schools is the vast majority of what local government does. So no matter what you do, whether the budget is growing or shrinking, you will have to touch in some way those three departments in order to get real results on the bottom line. The last thing I'll say is, because I'm not so sure everyone has understood this, when the municipal government borrows, all of the debt service on its borrowing is paid out of its municipal side budget. So the vast majority of the general obligation debt of the town, just about 72% of it, is bond issues for 3 elementary schools and other school projects. Now this year, the voters voted, I was actually a little bit surprised, rather overwhelmingly, for another new bond. The total debt service, if we were to just go straight forward and pay both principal and interest in the first year, would be $1.3 million. And it would all have to be absorbed against the municipal side bottom line. So there is an interest-only option that's being discussed that would still be $515,000. The council and the administration have to find a way to absorb that hit and still provide services at a level that the public expects. And so the council's submission to you will be a net increase of 2.44% as it stands now, and it's very preliminary, and I think they're going to take some more out of that, is my guess. But we started off already taking the Budget Committee's remand into account after the petitioner's budget prevailed, and then now this issuance of debt. So over these last 2 fiscal years, we will have absorbed, some $1.4 million in cuts on a $19 million budget. So that's the last set of little graphs you'll see in the beginning of that document. So I'll distribute them later. I'd rather not distract everyone if you have other business.
Okay.
Just to clarify, by cuts, you mean reductions and increase?
But I think this year we are legitimately looking at quite a few
An overall
cuts.
An overall cut of the budget?
Not an overall cut, no, I just said we're up 2.44 from last year's level. But in order to get there, we had to rearrange quite a lot of furniture and to continue the services that we currently promise the people.
Does that factor in the preliminary school budget as well?
Yes, sir,
It does.
but only in the bottom line, so
Correct.
that's all
Understood.
we show is what they're asking for.
Mhm.
Okay, we look forward to getting your handout, which we should get to a point where we can do that pretty quickly.
Now, the only thing, Mr. Chairman, I'd ask about process is if members have questions, if they could put them through you so that they can everybody can see questions that they've asked offline and the answers. It might make your meetings more efficient.
Yeah.
If it's simply ticky-tacky things, like what does this account do, or I'd be happy to answer those
Well,
outside of the context of a formal meeting. But I'd like my answers to be the same, everybody get the same information at the same time,
Okay.
if that's possible.
And once we get the document, then everybody will have a chance to look at it, because obviously none of us can react in any way tonight.
No.
We need a chance to look at it.
When will we be getting the?
A little bit later this evening.
No, but there still may be more adjustments, so I'm asking when we're going to actually get
My
it.
understanding of the process is what you've been given is a preliminary budget. This is kind of the way it worked last year. You got a preliminary budget. The town council will have its workshops to make its decisions. And parallel to that, last year, you had those preliminary meetings where we described what's in each account, what's going on, but you didn't start actually taking votes until the council had finished and sent you their final markup. I have no reason to believe that's changed.
No, but going through the calendar that's established in the charter for the financial town referendum, on 3/18, the final budgets are due. So they've got, to answer Mrs. Triggs'
Yeah,
question,
thank you.
they have until then to do that. Which, while I'm looking at my piece of paper, before I forget, I want to give everybody a heads up that on 3/18, we have the final budgets and the final revenue estimates from everybody. Then on 4/5, some like 18, 19 days later, we, the Budget Committee, have to have the completed docket to the town clerk. So I would ask everybody to look at their schedules and make sure that you keep as much openness as possible, because we very well may need to be meeting more than once a week in that period. Because from 3/18 to 4/5 is, like I said, I think that's like 18, 19 days that we have to get it done. So I wanted to mention that, so I've got that off my checklist. So now that brings me to item number 4, correspondence or information documents received, presented. So he's going to present some. Does anybody else have any that they want to distribute? Hearing none. Town facility visit. As I mentioned already, we're on for the police department this coming Saturday, the 21st. On the 28th, we're at DPW. Both facilities over on Industrial Way, and we're to be there at 9 o'clock. The other I want to mention that the school committee, I've received word from the school district that they will meet with us to go over their budget, which everybody has a copy of, on February 2nd. Next week, Madam Clerk will be here to present her budget. I would also ask that.
February 2nd?
February 2nd for the school committee, yes, sir. I would also ask that for next week's meeting, come prepared to talk about resolutions. In other words, look at the resolutions that were done in the past, see what you think of those. My purpose is to start that discussion now rather than waiting until the period of 3/18 to 4/5, which is going to be crowded. And with that, does anybody have anything else? Then I would look for a motion to adjourn, and the town administrator can pass out the books after we adjourn.
So move.
All in favor? We stand adjourned at 8:02.